From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Mashman, and these are your 2:30 headlines. Our top story out of Ottawa today is Speaker of the House Anthony Rota resigns his position.
It's with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons.
Rota, who landed in controversy for inviting a veteran of the Nazi SS to Parliament for an address by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, addressing him as a Canadian and Ukrainian hero and allowing the House to greet the man with a standing ovation, has faced harsh criticisms from the House leadership of the NDP, Bloc, and his own Liberal Party, all of which called on his resignation. The Conservative Party was also highly critical of Rota and his actions. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the situation was extremely embarrassing, but made no public calls on Rota to resign. This following meetings with House leaders from all major parties. BC Premier David Eby has addressed reporters in Ottawa this afternoon, this following 2 days of meetings with federal officials, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Eby expressed his confidence that the federal government would start sharing information with him to prevent a litany of crimes. This after Eby criticized the federal government for not sharing information with him about the evidence that India may have been involved in the murder of a Sikh activist in Surrey. Eby also said the CSIS Act was a big part of the reason he was not privy to information that might be vital to BC and their residents, but would work with federal government to get vital information to the greatest extent the Act allows, pending reform. Eby also reiterated that Surrey needed their own police service, and on housing, he had this to say.
On housing, I am, on the one hand, very glad to hear from the federal government that they're willing to work with us on coordinating our programs, federal programs and provincial programs in BC. BC, we think we're on the leading edge of addressing the housing crisis.
An update on the story of a helicopter crash some 50 kilometers outside of Prince George earlier today. 2 people are confirmed to have passed in the helicopter crash, with 4 in hospital, according to the Transportation Safety Board. The Transportation Safety Board are currently investigating the scene, and there has been a reported presence of fire department, search and rescue, and RCMP personnel. As the opioid epidemic in BC worsens, people are looking for new strategies. Joseph Auguste has more.
7 years after the public health emergency against opioid epidemic was announced, BC residents are still dying at an astounding rate. Safe supply and harm reduction have become paramount in the battle against overdoses, and more attention is being given to prevention rather than confiscation. Naloxone, a youth-run nonprofit, aims to educate youth on safe supply and harm reduction, as well as awareness. David Ackland, a volunteer with the group, compared attention levels to the opioid crisis to the COVID-19 pandemic.
I like to compare it to the COVID-19 pandemic, also declared public health emergency, but I think a ton of resources were poured into combating the spread of COVID-19, but more people have died from drug overdose in BC, and we are not seeing the same response from the provincial government.
Really makes you think about just how many people died due to drug overdose. Joseph Auguste, 1680, The Crow.
In American news, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is filing a lawsuit against Amazon. The tech giant is firing back. Mike Dubusky with ABC News has the story.
Amazon says the lawsuit represents a fundamental misunderstanding of retail and says that if successful, the action would raise prices and extend shipping times for Amazon customers. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's among the 17 state AGs filing the lawsuit alongside the FTC, says Amazon needs to be held accountable for using its dominant place in the market to disadvantage consumers by prioritizing its own products and stifling competition. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
And now for the weather. It is 15 degrees and mostly cloudy in Vancouver. As we go into the afternoon, rain is expected with the risk of thunderstorms persisting into the evening before breaking for showers throughout the night and into tomorrow morning. Remember that weather advisories are still in place for some areas of the province. So if you are around central BC or coastal BC, you might want to look out for what might affect you. Parts of Vancouver Island as well. These have been your news headlines for 1680 The Crow. I'm Max Mashman.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikka-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
I grew up here. I made friends here. I came here, to work, to learn more about my family's legacy. I learned my language here. This is home. The Punjabi market is the oldest, like, little India in North America. In 2008, after the global financial crisis, specifically with the Punjabi market, people were just looking for opportunities. So that's why you saw a lot of the commerce flee from here into Surrey. But in 2017, I lost my dad. And after I lost my dad, I did a lot of soul searching, thinking about him. I was grieving. You know, my dad was sick for a very long time. And I don't know, for some reason I made this connection between watching him deteriorate and watching the market deteriorate. And in my dad's case, I wasn't able to intervene, right? His story was written. He passed away in 2017. But with the market, I had the option to intervene. I think that there wasn't a singular inspiration. I don't think that you could say that. It was just it was a collection of experiences that sort of just led me in that direction. And I think I sort of stumbled into it, to be honest. It was just a collection of individuals who'd been talking, you know, for a few months about what the future of the market was. When I was thinking about, hey, what are we going to do with the Punjabi market? I decided to go on Instagram. I saw this like illustration of the street sign. It had like a pink and orange background, and it was stylized in this like squiggly line. And I thought it was really cool. So what I decided to do, like at midnight, was DM the person and be like, hey, I really like your artwork. That person was Jag Negra.
I joined in 2019. I met Gulzar Nanda, who's our current chair, and he had introduced me to the idea of like helping revitalize and beautify Punjabi market because there hadn't been a lot of investment in the area in so long. So there was a group of volunteers that were coming together to work on this like neighborhood, right? So as soon as he started telling me about it, I got really excited, and right away I was like, yes, I want to be involved. I think when we first started, there was a bit of a challenge because like there have been other community groups who've tried to revitalize the market. Politicians come around every year during election cycles, right, to try to they come for photo ops sometimes, right? There's been lots of empty promises. There's been lots of broken promises. So there was a little bit of hesitation and like disbelief, I guess, in the work we were trying to do. But I think as we're making, I think the physical changes is what helps them see that we are doing something, right? For me, like it kind of pulls at my heartstrings because I remember, like I grew up in Maple Ridge, which is about 45 minutes away from here, and we would come like once a year to do a big shopping day. We'd follow my parents, my aunts, like from shop to shop. We'd come here to Himalaya restaurant for lunch, chole bhature every time. And those memories have like been seared into my mind. And to be able to give back to this neighborhood, that meant so much to me. And now coming here with my two young children who are 2 and 4, and having them know what Punjabi market is and hopefully have them grow with it, I think that's so beautiful.
Well, as I said, there was none of the Indian business. So the people coming from even Prince George, Kamloops, William Lake, when there was a long weekend holidays, they were doing to do the business in the Punjabi market.
Having a store on Main Street, you can brag about it, honestly. And like having, like in 90s when I opened the store, having a store, a big store like this, it was really great to have something on Main Street. And in those days though, no, it was a very, very great thing to have something.
Punjabi market ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਬਾਇਲਿੰਗੁਅਲ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ ਬਾਹਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ
God, there are lots of memories. I remember the first parade when we saw there more than 100,000 people walking by the street. Wow, it was packed. Like you can't even walk around there. There were so many people. That was such a big community we have here, though. And that was a show of strength as well for the community, I guess. And we were very proud to be, to be part of that event.
We celebrated the 25th of anniversary in 1995. At that time, most of the shops were run by the Indo-Canadian community. I know at that time there are 400 Indo-Canadian community employees were working in the market, and we doing about $70 million business.
For the first 10, 12 years, it was just solid up. And then it got steady for a little while. And then the Surrey came in existence. And then now the more people were going and living in Surrey because that was more affordable though.
I think there's like this misconception that, hey, everybody from Vancouver that's South Asian moved to Surrey or they moved to Burnaby. But the census data doesn't show that. The census data shows that there have never been as many South Asians as there are now in all of the Lower Mainland. And that includes Vancouver.
What we can do to help support those businesses is create what we call placemaking. So making a destination, making a place that people want to go, and centering Punjabi market as a real locus for South Asian culture in the city of Vancouver.
Yeah, we advocate for this neighborhood a lot. We meet regularly with the city of Vancouver. We have brought a lot of public art initiatives here, and we're kind of revitalizing it from an arts and culture-based lens, right? And trying to help these mom and pop shops that have been here, help them grow, help attract new businesses, new young entrepreneurs to come here and invest here. And the last thing we want is for it to get completely gentrified and forgotten and erased, because so much of our history, that's what tends to happen, especially in Vancouver. So we want to hold on to the legacy here.
And then looking at things like that we could immediately improve as a city, things like street furniture, adding electrical sockets to lamp standards so we could do, string up lights and stuff like that. And then there's more ambitious things like a gate that's long been talked about over Main Street to actually kind of really signify things like street beautification and murals and stuff, and we've seen the actualization of the murals. And strategies to bring back some of those businesses. So when we talk about what people make living heritage, it's the shops, it's the people who use those shops, it's the people who hang out and make the community, and it's not just a bunch of old buildings.
How many people have walked these streets and forged connections that are undying? They to this day still endure. I think that's probably the legacy of this place, is that it brought us together from all over the western seaboard of North America.
I guess being able to provide like a home away from home for so many newcomers is really important. Long term, I want this to be like such a lively street, the way it was when I was a kid, right? Like you couldn't find parking when I was a kid and we'd come here. I want that kind of like liveliness here again.
But all I can say that is stay positive and just help us out and show us the way and we will follow you basically. And they are leading us very well.
Well, I think the Gulzar Nanda's organization is doing their best try to keep the market up. I think it would survive.
Yeah, it feels incredible. It's like, as a visual artist, I never thought I would be here. Like I was like making art, right? But to see the impact we're having, like I don't think I notice it or think about it day to day, and I think that'll come maybe in a few years when I look back and see like here's what we accomplished. But I think every year like I can look back at the changes we've made and the initiatives we've brought here, and I feel really proud of it, right? Like it's really cool to be playing a part in Punjabi market's overall story and history, and like in 50 years people will talk about the work we did. I think that's really, really cool.
When South Asians first migrated here, they started off as laborers in factories, farms. What the Punjabi market really showed the Western world was that the South Asian person can be an entrepreneur. Their value isn't just in their hands, And there was still a lot of racism, right? But seeing our community thrive here, people should have paused and been like, wow, these South Asians, people that we might not think as our equals, they're doing really well. And I think that's really the road through which we get to where we are now. We've left an undeniable mark on Canada, and I feel like it started almost here.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Hello, I am Alicia in Alaska, delivering you the afternoon headlines. Anthony Rhoda has formally resigned from his position as a Speaker of the House of Commons. Rhoda was subsequent to resign after inviting a man who fought for a Nazi unit during the Second World War. During his resignation, he said it has been a greatest honor being a House Speaker.
I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during the joint address to Parliament of President Zelensky. That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations. I accept full responsibility for my actions.
Today morning, a helicopter crash was reported around 7:45 a.m. near Purden Lake at the east of Prince George. There has now been an update of the accident where unfortunately 2 people have died and 4 are injured. Transportation Board of Canada shared in a statement that this has been a fatal helicopter accident. The BC Emergency Health Services have not yet shared the condition of the injured. Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation is inviting people who live and work in Kitsilano and Fairview to help design a new neighborhood park. The board is inviting people from September 26th to October 15th to construct and help shape the new park, Burrard Slopes. This one will be located in Pine and Fear Street and West 5th and 6th Avenue. According to the park, this will bring the community together and will help draft the concept for the future park, which the public will be able to review in spring 2024. On Tuesday, BC Place unveiled a new sensory room for neurodivergent people when visit the stadium. Lachlan Irvin has more.
The new sensory room was designed in conjunction with Culture City, a nonprofit aiming to make events more accessible for people with sensory disabilities. The space features beanbag chairs, activity panels on the walls, and soft lighting so visitors are able to avoid sensory overload. BC Place General Manager Chris May says the stadium's efforts to make their events more inclusive go far beyond just the new space.
All of our event staff, all of those people that you come in contact with when you hand over a ticket or get shown to your seats or work with a security person, they've gone through training from Culture City on people who are neurodiverse. So not only are these rooms there, these sensory kits there, but also all our staff are properly trained now on it, and that's a big contributing piece as well.
Guests will be able to take their first look inside when the BC Lions host the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Friday, September 29th. Lachlan Irvin, 1680 The Crow.
Our reporter Lachlan is live with us now. Lachlan, Chris mentioned that BC Place had also introduced sensory kits with their experience. What do those consist of?
So the sensory kits are equipped with noise-canceling headphones, fidget tools, and verbal cue cards, and weighted lap pads, essentially to make the experience of being in your seat for these events and for sports concerts a more relaxing experience for those with sensory disabilities.
I see. And where in BC Place can people find the new sensory space?
It is located on Section 215 at the west end of the stadium, and according to BC Place, it will be available for all future events going forward.
Thank you, Lachlan. September 30th is the day of Truth and Reconciliation Day and the 10th anniversary of Orange Shirt Day. But what is this history behind it? Riley Leung has more.
Truth and Reconciliation Day is a day where Canadians remember the stories of Indigenous people and Canada's racist past against them. This is including the Indigenous lives that were lost in residential schools and those who were broken coming back from them. Judy Meir, an elder from the Jitsam Wet'suwet'en First Nations, has a brother who has experienced the residential schools, and this is what she had to say.
He came back broken. He wasn't the same. He couldn't live a normal life. Every time he had difficulties, he always ran away and whatever, and then he'd show up. He couldn't function properly. And it's affected family lives, it's affected generations.
Many Indigenous people still have trauma of the residential schools, which will remain in their lives forever. Riley Leung, 1680 The Crow.
First Nations across BC will now benefit from a $50 million investment from the province to the First Nation Wellbeing Fund. This fund is meant to implement an initiative for the First Nations Summit Society to support First Nations in their efforts to promote well-being, quality of life for members, and reduce poverty at the community and nation level. BC Premier David Eby addressed reporters this afternoon in Ottawa. This following 2 days of meetings with federal officials, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Eby expressed his confidence that the federal government will start sharing information with him to prevent a latinity of crimes. This after Eby criticized the federal government for not sharing information with him about their evidence that India may have been involved in the murder of 6 activists in Surrey. Eby also said that the Crisis Act was a big part of the reason he was not privy to information that might be vital to BC and the residents, but will work with the federal government to get vital information to the greatest extent the Act follows pending reform. Eby also reiterated that Surrey need their own police service, and on housing, Eby had to say this.
On housing, I am, on the one hand, very glad to hear from the federal government that they're willing to work with us on coordinating our programs, federal programs and provincial programs in BC. In BC, we think we're on the leading edge of addressing the housing crisis.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, September 27, Catherine Conroy, Minister of Finance, will provide an update about the economic landscape in BC's 3-year fiscal plan with the release of the province's first quarterly report. This includes reporting on revenue and spending in the first quarter of the fiscal year. It's hopeful seen on the strike picket lines in Hollywood, the first day back since a tentative deal was announced for the Writers Guild of America.
Mixed in among the picketing actors were dozens of writers in blue WGA shirts, including Johnny Gomez.
I was a WGA strike captain, yes. Does it feel nice to say you were a strike captain? It feels really nice. It feels really nice to say that.
He's happy there's a tentative deal, but isn't sure yet what's in it.
We're just excited and waiting to see the deal points.
SAG-AFTRA strike captain Terry Wilkerson is also happy there's a WGA deal and hopes the actors are next.
I would hope that we would possibly come back to the table within the next month.
But right now, no talks are scheduled. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Burbank.
Moving now into sports, starting with baseball. First baseman and designated hitter Brandon Bell has been reinstated from the 10-day injured list by Toronto Blue Jays. He will bat 6 for Toronto in tonight's game against the New York Yankees. Bell was out of lumbar spine muscle spasms. Right-handed reliever Jay Jackson was also recalled from a Triple-A Buffalo by the Blue Jays ahead of the critical game against the visiting Yankees. Infielder Spencer Harwitz and hard-throwing righty Nate Pearson were sent to the Florida Complex League in corresponding moves. Toronto holds the American League's second wildcard spot with 6 games left in the regular season. The American League wants to team the Texas Rangers beat the Los Angeles Angels 5-1 last night for their 6th straight victory. Texas maintained its 2.5-game lead in the LA West over Houston, which won 5-1 at Seattle to drop the Skyday Mariners 4 games behind the Rangers with 6 to play. Marcus Semien had a homer for Texas in the victory. Here's the sound of the play by Semien's home run.
And his first offering here is hit high and deep by Semien down the left field line. It's got a shot and it goes. Grichuk there at the short wall could not make a play. Marcus Semien homers again. It's his 28th of the season. The Rangers on 4 solo home runs lead 4-1.
Moving into football, Ottawa's Red Black quarterback Dustin Crum is the CFL's top-graded quarterback for the 2nd straight week. Crum earned a top grade of 92.9 among pivots of the CFL announced its weekly honor roll. CRUM passed for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns and rushed 5 times for 53 yards in the Red Blacks' 36-28 win over Saskatchewan. Canada's women's soccer team can put itself into position to defend its Olympic title when it holds Jamaica tonight at VMO Field. The winner of the 2-game aggregate soccer series gets its last regional spot at the 2024 Paris game. The Canadians took the first leg 2-0 last week in Kingston, Jamaica, so even a 1-0 loss tonight will see them through. Moving into the tennis world, Canadian tennis great Daniel Nestor is one of 6 players named to the ballot for the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Nestor won Olympic gold in 2000 and is an 8-time Grand Slam double champion and 4-time mixed doubles Grand Slam winner. The 51-year-old from Toronto played from 1991 to 2018. Continuing tennis, top spin Karen Khachanov won his first tour title nearly 5 years by beating Yoshita Nishaoka 7-6, 6-1 at the Sui Championships. Khachanova dropped only 1 set en route to the final at another Chinese tournament. Top speed Alexander Zverev claims his 21st career title with a 6-7, 6-3 victory over Roman Safolin at the Chengdu Open. Continuing with American football. The Cincinnati Bengals bet the Los Angeles Rams 19-16 last night to get their first win after starting the season with 2 losses. Bengals head coach Zach Taylor says the win will hopefully set the tone for the rest of the season.
You know, you got to get that first win, and it changes everything, changes the week, changes the momentum. To hear them get a chance to sing the song in the locker room is good. So, again, it creates a lot of positive energy over the week, which we haven't had the last couple of weeks. You just feel that kind of hanging over you. But I thought our guys, managed this game well. It starts really with the defense. The defense set the tone for us in the first half while the offense was trying to get their feet underneath them. And so to hold them to, 6 points at halftime, I think it was, and then allow the offense to go out and start to get some momentum and play with a 2-score lead, that's the type of football game we're used to playing.
Moving on to weather, condition right now is light rain with a rising tendency. Temperature is at 15.3 degrees and humidity at 77%. Wind is moving southeast at 24 kilometers per hour with a visibility of 24 kilometers. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Alicia Nolasco for 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the lower mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
On September 30th, 2023, Truth and Reconciliation Day, also called Orange Shirt Day, is a day to honor the survivors of residential schools and their families, and to remember those who lost their lives in the system. I'm talking to Judy Meir, who is an elder that comes from the Jitsam Wet'suwet'en First Nation. Judy, an elder, came to BCIT Indigenous Service Room, and we are talking to her about her story and in Truth and Reconciliation. What is your story?
I lived off reserve my whole life, but the impacts of my people have impact every day on our lifestyle. With whether we go to school, hospitals, whatever, there's an impact because of the judgments that come with it. They kind of judge us by the color of our skin, and they have these perceptions of who we are without really knowing who we are or what our life is, right? I've worked my whole life, raised my children. I've always been hardworking, but that's not what they see. They don't understand that. I'm a homeowner. I bought a home. A lot of people probably think that's shocking, but when I was younger, I never thought it was possible to actually own a home. I always rented. It just seemed, for some reason, out of my bounds, but I realize it's easy to do. You put your mind to doing something and you just do it, and that's how I proceed with life. But the journey through life has been really hard. People don't understand. If I witness something happening and I see it, it hurts me. It's the same as if it's being directed at me, because as an Indigenous person, and I see somebody being treated badly or yelled at or just disrespected, it hurts. It hurts us all, and people don't understand that. Our rights, it's difficult. People don't see us as equals, and they treat us accordingly to what they think. And all that has to change, and this truth and reconciliation, I'm hoping will bring about the change that we need, especially for the younger people, because they need to be proud of who they are. They need to understand that it's okay to be who we are, that it shouldn't be a challenge.
And speaking of Truth and Reconciliation, what does Truth and Reconciliation Day mean to you?
It means getting people to understand our history, to know the truth about what happened, to embrace it and not feel ashamed. They don't have to carry the burden. All I want them to see and to feel is the truth, and to actually feel it and see it and understand it. And that means change for me.
And why is Truth and Reconciliation so important for Canadians to know about, really?
Because it's been disregarded so long, and it's such an ugly, shocking truth. If they really research it and look into it, a lot of people say, well, it can't have happened, and they're in disbelief. And it's sometimes you have to face the truth for things to get better, you know. And it's not, people say it's something that we should just forget about that happened a long time ago. It's still happening, and it's still recent. 1996 is the last residential school closed down, and it's in fact had an impact on all families, mine included. I had a brother that went there. He came back broken. He wasn't the same. He couldn't live a normal life. Every time he had difficulties, he always ran away and whatever, and then he'd show up. He couldn't function properly, and it's affected family lives. It's affected generations, because I have no idea if my own grandparents went, but I'm thinking they must have, but it's something they don't talk about because of the dysfunction, and there was lack of hugs. There was a lack of, everything was be silent, suffer the burdens without speaking out. Don't say anything, because they don't want to be judged, that kind of thing, and that has to change for our strength. And that's what it means to me, and that's why it's important.
How has the Truth and Reconciliation process helped the Indigenous people?
It's given us strength to speak out. It's given us strength to stand up and realize that, yeah, we do have a voice, and we do have strength, and we do have each other. And it's opened people's eyes, and I notice in the hospital system it's changing. The last time I went, I was treated better. I wasn't fearful. I didn't feel disrespected like usual. I mean, it's improved a lot just in the last 4 years.
Where can students learn about history, about the Indigenous people, and just Truth and Reconciliation overall?
There's a lot of documentaries and movies coming out, and they should watch every one that they can find, and books where people are writing about the truth, writing about the experience, and there's so much more that I would like to learn myself, because for me, my brother never talked about what happened, and I'm hearing through other people the horrible things that happened, and I can't imagine. And I can't imagine mothers giving up their children when they're crying and not knowing why their parents didn't want them. That's not the truth, right? The children that didn't come home, I can't imagine the parents never knowing where they are or what happened. And I can't imagine the government not taking the responsibility to give up the names of these children and the truth of what happened to them. That's the least they can do after what they did.
It's maybe a little bit of a more sensitive question. It's like, have you ever gone through had like a bad experience back then and then like just notice a massive change now?
Yes, horrible ones in the medical system. With the RCMP, for instance, I was working in a restaurant and I was the only one cooking in the kitchen. I had one wait staff. I had a full house. The front door and the back door of the restaurant, there was police. They came in and with an arrest warrant. Right? I had no clue what was going on. They asked me to come to the back, out the back, to talk to them. So, of course, I'm going to talk to them because I don't know what's going on. They got guns. So I go and talk to them, and they said that there was someone reported someone that looked like me that was working here, that they had an arrest warrant for. And I said, they asked me for ID. I provided it, and I said, I'm not this person. I said, can you give me the courtesy of showing me the picture of this person that I suppose you look like? So he shows me the picture. I look at it and I laugh and I go, we all look alike to you. That does not look like me. And I said, I said, what was you charged for? They go, forging checks. I go, if I had that kind of lifestyle, I would not be working here for $6 an hour. But I was really upset. I quit my job that day. But I was really upset of the possibility. I said, so what would have happened if I did not have my identification, if I didn't bring my purse with me today? Because I only lived a few blocks away from where I worked. I said, what would have happened? You would have handcuffed me and dragged me out in front of the whole neighborhood and embarrassed me? And they didn't even apologize.
What year was this?
That was in 92.
92? Wow. So fairly like recent, less than 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And
then when I go to the hospital, I have a bad back. And I get muscle spasms from my neck down to my toes, and it's like electrical shocks to my whole body, and I can't breathe. So I go to Emerge, and they treat me like I'm seeking pain medication because I'm a drug addict, and I'm not. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything. I'm a normal person like everybody else. Well, I'm not perfect, but they treat me like that, and they just give me T3s. I'm going there to find out what's wrong. Can you fix it? What do I need to do, right? But that's not how they treat me.
how will you be, like, final question, how will you be spending Truth and Reconciliation Day on the 30th?
Probably talking to more students and trying to get them to understand, doing everything I can. That's why I come here and do the work I do.
Any last words before I finish off?
Thank you for listening to me. I know it's pretty depressing, but that's my life. But you got to have a sense of humor, otherwise you won't make it through it.
I'm Riley Lung, and I talked to Judy Mir from the Jitsam Wet'suwet'en First Nations, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see. Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Our top story, BC Premier David Eby addressed reporters this afternoon in Ottawa following 2 days of meetings with federal officials, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Eby expressed confidence that the federal government would start sharing information after criticizing the government for not sharing intelligence that India was involved in the murder of a Sikh activist in Surrey. Eby also alluded to the CSIS Act being part of the reason why he was not privy to the information. Information Eby thinks may be vital in keeping BC residents safe. Despite this, Eby said he will work with the federal government to get as much necessary information as he can pending reform to the Act. Eby also reiterated that Surrey needed their own police service and will continue to move away from the RCMP. And on housing, Eby had this to say. In other provincial news, a deadly helicopter crash near Prince George this morning has left 2 dead and 4 injured. The Transportation Safety Board has confirmed that the helicopter was carrying 6 passengers and say they are investigating the incident. A BC school district is getting a new name just in time for Truth and Reconciliation Week. Our reporter Richard Davis has more.
The school district, formerly known as the Powell River School District, is now known as the Cathet School District. The district announced the change yesterday and is now using the name for all communications. They've also started the legal process to change the name. The name Cathet is a gifted word which signifies working together. It's also the name of the Cathet Regional District, which the city of Powell River is a part of. The Powell in Powell River is in reference to Israel Powell, BC's first superintendent of Indian Affairs in British Columbia. During Powell's 17 years in this position, he advocated for the forced integration of Indigenous peoples into colonial Canadian society, and 2 residential schools were constructed. Richard Davis, 1680 The Crow.
Moving over to Vancouver, where BC Place unveiled a new sensory room for neurodivergent people visiting the stadium. Our reporter Lachlan Irvine has more.
The new sensory room was designed in conjunction with Culture City, a nonprofit aiming to make events more accessible for people with sensory disabilities. The space features beanbag chairs, activity panels on the walls, and soft lighting so visitors are able to avoid sensory overload. BC Place General Manager Chris May says the stadium's efforts to make their events more inclusive go far beyond just the new space.
All of our event staff, all of those people that you come in contact with when you hand over a ticket or get shown to your seats or work with a security person, they've gone through training from Culture City on people who are neurodiverse. So not only are these rooms there, these sensory kits there, but also all our staff are properly trained now on it, and that's a big contributing piece as well.
Guests will be able to take their first look inside when the BC Lions host the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Friday, September 29th. Lachlan Irvin, 1680 The Crow.
Moving to national news, Speaker of the House Anthony Rota has resigned, facing mounting pressure from both his own Liberal Party and all opposition parties.
It's with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons.
Rhoda's resignation comes after he invited Yaroslav Hunka, a veteran of the Nazi SS, to a speech by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Rhoda also addressed the Nazi veteran as a hero of both Ukraine and Canada and mentioned that he had fought against the Russians for Ukraine during the Second World War. Hunka was then greeted by standing ovation by the House of Commons. While not publicly calling for Rhoda's resignation, Trudeau did say the incident was extremely embarrassing. In related news, Poland's education minister says he has taken steps to extradite Yaroslav Hunka, the aforementioned SS veteran, in light of what he described as scandalous acts in the Canadian Parliament. Canada's Attorney General has said that he cannot comment as to the extradition request, as one has not reached his desk. In international news, Antarctic sea ice levels have hit an all-time low, causing concern, according to the American's National Snow and Ice Data Center. The concern that as polar waters warm, more sea ice will melt, creating a spiral. And now for the weather. It is currently 16 degrees and cloudy in Vancouver with a risk of thunderstorms going into the late afternoon and evening. Showers are expected to persist throughout the night, so pack a coat if you are planning on going out. This is Max Mashman. These have been your 3:30 headlines, and you are listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the lower mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.